Johnny was distraught about the lashings and wanted to quit. While working at Captain Frankel's office, he overheard Sergeant Zim request a transfer to combat duty. Zim believed Hendrick's punishment was too harsh. Frankel asserted that the fault for the incident was Zim's, whose job was to prevent recruits from breaking the code of conduct. You must never give them a chance to violate it. Zim agreed, saying he let his guard down because he liked Hendricks for his earnestness. Zim wished he could take the lashings, but Frankel informed him he would have to get in line behind him. Frankel reminded Zim that he was a recruit while Zim was his training corporal 12 years prior, and that Frankel hated Zim with a passion. Only Zim's skill as a trainer prevented Frankel from violating Article 9080 himself. Frankel denied Zim's request for transfer and ordered him to ensure his staff was alert for any further attempts against them. They agreed to meet that evening for one-on-one martial arts practice to alleviate the tensions of the day. Johnny was shaken by the conversation and realized his view of the military was flawed. He came to understand that fault lay elsewhere from where it appeared, and that smug sergeants took dressing downs worse than Johnny had suffered, and remote and indifferent captains worked as hard as any soldier. A letter from his mother informed him that his father was deeply hurt by his decision to join the military and wouldn't speak of Johnny, but that his mother loved him always. Johnny wept. Late that night, the men were mustered for a sudden training exercise that involved freezing for an hour. In the morning, Johnny attempted to find Zim to resign, but he couldn't get the sergeant alone. During mail call, Johnny received a letter from his high school moral philosophy instructor, Mr. Dubois. The teacher congratulated him on getting over the hump, the worst part of mobile infantry training, and added that risking his life to protect humanity was the most honorable way to perform the service that would make Johnny a citizen. He signed the letter Jean V. Dubois, Lieutenant Colonel, MIRTD, and Johnny realized his cranky old teacher was a high-ranking officer in mobile infantry. Johnny remembered Dubois demolishing Marxist theory that labor must have value even if it's useless. Dubois insisted that nothing in life is free and the highest values are purchased with one's life. During a long hike, Johnny suddenly felt happy and realized Dubois was right. I had passed my hump. At camp, Zim took Johnny aside and asked if the letter he received earlier was from a man missing a hand. Surprised, Johnny confirmed, and Zim revealed he served under Colonel Dubois. Johnny read him the part with Dubois' greetings to anyone at camp who may have remembered him, to which Zim expressed gratitude. The main tool of the mobile infantry soldier was powered suits, equipped with more weaponry than a squadron of tanks, but with precise control. The suits allowed infantry squads to deliver targeted pressure against an enemy and accomplish specific goals. They gave the wearer a weaponized guerrilla appearance, enhancing their eyes, ears, and muscles. All telemetry was displayed on the faceplate, controlled by chin and teeth movements. The suits could jump over buildings, crush large objects, and handle delicate tasks. The type of suits varied based on their purpose, with heavier weapons for attackers, lighter weapons for scouts, and more jet-powered suits for commanders. Johnny cheated during a simulated bomb practice, which could have put his squad in danger. He was punished with 5 lashes for gross negligence. No one brought it up afterwards, and it was erased from record upon graduation, but Johnny never forgot the lesson. Floggings were uncommon, and recruits were usually expelled instead. Lashes were typically administered to recruits believed to be redeemable as soldiers for lesser offenses. Desertion during training resulted in 50 lashes, but the authorities rarely searched for the culprits. Desertion under fire, however, carried the death penalty. One deserter, N.L. Dillinger, later kidnapped and killed a child and was captured and sent back to mobile infantry. The MI took care of their own, no matter what. The recruits were made to watch as Dillinger was stripped of all insignia and then hung, followed by 30 days of mourning and disgrace for the regiment. Johnny considered the idea of capital punishment and couldn't find a solution. If Dillinger was aware, his penalty was not harsh enough. If he was insane, death was not a lesson, but he still posed a threat. If he could be cured, the knowledge of his actions might drive him to suicide. Either way, Dillinger ended up dead. Johnny remembered his moral philosophy class in high school, where Mr. Dubois explained that leniency led to lawlessness, which caused the collapse of the North American Republic. Dubois believed that a human being has no natural rights of any nature, and that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness must be fought for from nature and tyrants. Johnny wondered where young Dillinger fit into that theory. Regardless, Dillinger's actions would no longer result in the death of children. Johnny's trainee regiment shrunk from 2,000 to less than 400, with his own H Company down to a single platoon. They relocated to Camp Sergeant Spooky Smith high in the Canadian Rockies. Captain Frankel spent more individualized time with the recruits, training them in the challenging terrain. Flying powered suits was difficult, resulting in 2 recruits dying and 1 retiring on medical discharge. Recruits spent Sundays in uniform on leave among the civilians in Vancouver, which was accessible by shuttle. Johnny soon realized how much he had changed as the city appeared strange to him, with the many useless items sold at stores and the attractive young ladies. Recruit Pat Levy offered to pay for shuttle tickets if Johnny and Kitten Smith joined him in Seattle, which they agreed to and went to the big city. At a bar, they were taunted by merchant marine sailors and civilian men. But when they were followed and assaulted, the attackers were quickly laid out unconscious. The police arrived, but the recruits didn't press charges as they were under orders to avoid trouble. Johnny realized he had defended himself purely out of reflex and understood why all recruits went on leave unarmed. The trainees began practicing powered suit landings from orbit, with a day's work consisting of going aboard, to space, making a drop, going through an exercise, and returning to home on a beacon. Each company was allotted roughly 1 drop per week, with the landings becoming harder over mountains, desert, the Arctic, and finally the moon, and more recruits quitting. Most washouts resigned or were discharged medically, but 14 died. Johnny got his first case of the drop shakes, which never went away. Out of the original complement of 2009 recruits, only 187 finished the training and received their certificates on graduation day. During his training, Johnny's world shifted from peacetime towards war. After graduation, he shipped out on the Spaceship Valley Forge with Willie's Wildcats Company. Alien forces attacked and destroyed Buenos Aires, and the Valley Forge was sent to Klindathu, the home planet of the bugs, as part of the first act of the Bug War. Bugs were large arthropod creatures, communal entities with a queen and a brain cast of leaders who controlled the warriors. Johnny's force dropped onto Klindathu with the hope of ending the war quickly with a decisive attack, but the operation was undermanned and quickly turned into a rout. Johnny was one of the few who survived, with 80 of his company being killed. The Valley Forge was destroyed, and Johnny shipped home on the Vortrek. His next posting was to the Ras-Zax Roughnecks Company under Sergeant Jalal aboard the Roger Young. The commanding officer, Lieutenant Rasak, was friendly but distant, except in battle when he worried over each of his men, managing to keep track of their individual dispositions at all times. The Roughnecks kept to their quarters and shunned Navy personnel as a snobbery existed between the two services, but occasionally performed guard duty at the forward bulkhead, near the Navy women's quarters, which was considered a privilege. Battle drops each unfolded differently to keep the enemy guessing, and attacks no longer were pitched battles, but harassing raids while the Terran Federation regrouped and rebuilt after the disaster at Klindathal. Johnny received a letter from his aunt informing him that his mother had died while visiting Buenos Aires when it was destroyed, and that his father would have been killed too if he wasn't delayed at home. On a drop, Lieutenant Raskzak died while rescuing 2 wounded soldiers, and Johnny was promoted from lance to full corporal. After the raid on the Skinny's planet that opened the book, Johnny and his companions spent 3 weeks repairing their suites and sharpening their skills as the ship journeyed towards a planet inhabited by the bug. A soldier among them crafted a model of the Roger Young, which was signed by all the Cap Troopers and presented to Captain Deladrier as a token of gratitude for the flawless drop and pickup operation on the Skinny's planet. One Corporal, Ace, who held a higher rank than Johnny, struggled to follow Johnny's orders. The only solution was to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Johnny and Ace repaired to a washroom where they had a fight, and Johnny lost. Ace lifted Johnny up, told him to punch him in the face, and Johnny obliged with a weak blow, causing Ace to collapse and act as if he was wounded. He then told Johnny that he would no longer challenge his authority. The war was not going well for the Federation, as the bugs could easily replace the 1,000 soldiers they lost within days from their reserve eggs. Johnny's company was instructed to show restraint towards Skinny civilians during attacks, as the Federation was making efforts to win their loyalty. Over time, the mobile infantry developed a more efficient strategy of targeting bug hives by dropping nerve gas into them, which reports from Skinny sources indicated the bugs despised. Sergeant Jalal was promoted to lieutenant, taking over Raskzak's position, and tradition dictated that the company be given a new name. They considered jellies jaguars, but Jalal rejected the proposal. At the repair base on the safe and confidential planet called Sanctuary, the troopers were given 10 days to recover. This planet was similar to Earth but had significantly lower levels of natural radiation, causing its life forms to only evolve as far as primitive ferns and proto-insect. This meant that human settlers on the planet would likely evolve more slowly compared to Earth and potentially fall behind the rest of the Federation. Such considerations are only resolved over the course of thousands of years. But for now, the planet was a paradise, and Johnny was enjoying himself. Half of the planet's 1 million civilians were female, as were 40 of Federal service personnel. There were many ways to be entertained, particularly in the central city of Espiritu Santo, where Johnny, on a date with a local lady, had a tendency to spend all his pay. Ace previously suggested that Johnny should aim for promotion to sergeant or higher by taking the Officer Candidate School's OCS selection exams, stating that Johnny had the required education and IQ. Johnny considered the idea, but realized one of the drawbacks was that a career officer could not vote as they were still in the military. Johnny struggled to recall why he joined the military in the first place, but remembered Colonel Dubois saying that true citizenship involved making others more important than oneself. Although he wasn't completely sold on protecting humanity, Johnny was dedicated to the mobile infantry, which had become like his family. He approached Lieutenant Jalal and requested a career track, which he was promptly sworn into after signing the acceptance papers. This is the end of part 2. Thank you for staying with us. If you enjoyed the video, please press like, leave a comment, and subscribe. See you soon on Books Recapped.